This is the message of James, that we, in our own ability, cannot stand in the face of adversity. We could never find the strength to trust without faith. Because we don't have the capability to see above the trials that we meet, to keep our eyes focused on the King while counting the situation we are currently experiencing as joy. Faith works. This is the essence of James. We don't work to be saved. We work because we are saved. Without faith, without works, we too quickly become that man in the mirror staring at his face, but then forgets the way he looks as soon as he turns away. But with faith, with works, we stay steadfast on this journey, progressively sanctified, knowing we'll be perfected once we reach the other side. Faith works. This is the cry of James, that faith apart from works can never be sustained, that in every day and in every way we should see this truth proclaimed, because it's faith that makes us doers of the word, not just hearers. It's faith that keeps us humble, not proud. It's faith that directs our tongues to bless, not to curse. It's faith that causes us to show mercy, not judgment. It's faith that leads us to true religion, not its empty substitute. And it's faith that's causing us to preach the good news to every tribe, tongue, and nation with every breath that we breathe. And it will be faith that causes us to worship our God for all eternity. This is the message of James. Faith works.
Do me a favor, reach in your bulletin, grab your Connect with Us cards, and if you could, put your name on it. If you are new with us, we ask you just to give us as much information as you're comfortable with. If you give us your mailing address, we'd love to mail you a free gift. As Gary so aptly said, that last week we talked about how works are the evidence of real faith. And today we build on that. We continue our series. We're about halfway through James, and so there's a lot of stuff that we've talked about, and this sermon today should bring some of that back to the forefront. But I want to remind you, in case you haven't been here for the series, James is Jesus' little brother. He's his little brother. He didn't believe in Jesus when Jesus was doing his ministry, like 30 years old. James thought his brother was crazy. He's like, we need an intervention. We need to do something with this guy. My brother is out of his mind. And it wasn't until after Jesus died on the cross, rose from the grave, that James placed his faith in Jesus, not because he heard of it, but because Jesus actually appeared to him, and he became a leader of the early church. And we know he believed it because he went on to be a martyr for his faith. He died because he wouldn't recant that he believed that Jesus is the Son of God. So I want to ask you a question as we move on from where we've been to where we're going. Have you ever said something that you wish you could just, there was a string attached, and as soon as it came out, you knew you shouldn't have said it, but you wish you could just pull it right back in? Yeah? Well, come back next week, because that's what we're going to talk about next week. Josh, our youth minister, is going to be preaching for you guys next week, and we planned out the series far in advance, so that's the text I gave him. So I'm going to be actually doing the text right after that about wisdom. And James is aptly called the Proverbs of the New Testament. And in Proverbs, what you find are some groups of people, and two of the main groups are the wise and the foolish people. Got the wise people and the foolish people. And the people that are wise, Proverbs tells us, they fear God. They do what God wants them to do. The people that are fools, what they do is they do what's right in their own eyes. They're wise in their own eyes. But here's the problem. Proverbs tells us this. Proverbs says that there's a way that seems right to man, but in the end it leads to death. So being wise in your own eyes is the same thing as saying you're a fool. And I don't know about you, but as I make decisions in life, I never make a decision knowing it's going to go poorly. You might, I don't. When you make a decision, you think that your decision is the right decision. You think that, well, this feels right, or my gut's telling me to, or this is logical, so this is what makes sense, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to act in accordance with those things. And you never set out to fail. You never set out to do something that you know is going to have bad consequences. You would never set out to do something that you knew that was going to lead to death, but that's often what we do. Because the question that you're going to have to wrestle with today is, how many times do you do something, you set out and do something, and you think it's going to go well, and you're wrong? And how many times are we going to have to be wrong before we realize that we need something more than our own feelings, our own gut leading us, or our own logic? How long until we realize that we need something greater? We need something from above, and James calls that wisdom. So the heart of what I want you to see today is this. We need wisdom from above to know what's best for our lives. There is no way that if we just rely on our feelings, if we just rely on what our gut's telling us to do, if we just rely on logic, that we will know what's best for our lives. We know what makes sense, but so often we follow that and it doesn't work. Good news. In the second week of this series, we told you something that you may have forgotten, and maybe it wasn't highlighted so highly, so I want to highlight it right now. The wisdom from above is available. In James chapter 1, verse 5, it tells us that. Let me read it to you. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, that's what we're talking about, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach. The NIV says without finding fault. The New Living Translation says he will not rebuke you for asking. It says, and it will be given him. What you need to know is that God is not like us. When someone comes to us asking for help, we think that's weakness. We think, oh, they're needy. But when we go to God and ask for help, he sees that as strength. He enjoys us coming to him. He desires that we come and ask him for wisdom, that we ask him for help, that we ask him for guidance. He says, if you ask me, I'm not going to find fault in you. I'm not going to see, oh, something's wrong with you because you don't know what's best for your life. I already told you that in my word. You don't know what's best for your life. Come and get that knowledge, that wisdom from me. So we're going to be in James chapter 3, verse 13 to 18 today. I'm going to read it from the screen for you guys. It says, who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. And the next slide is going to come up, but I want you to just dwell on that word. It says demonic. To think that you know what's better, you think you have the best plan for your life, and it's better than what God has for your life, James calls that demonic. I just find that something that's a shocking thing. I probably wouldn't say that to you if I was sitting across from you, but James is much bolder than I am, and he says that. Go to the next slide. It says, for where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder in every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. The first thing I need you to see today, and you can write this down, is wisdom is different than knowledge. Wisdom is different than knowledge. Let me try to illustrate this with you with the idea of driving a car. It's one thing to know how many horsepower your car has, right? My car has 360 horsepower. It's twin turbo. You know all that stuff, right? Great. I'm glad you know that. Wisdom is, how do you actually drive when it's raining, right? Because there's some fools out there that are going to be driving 30 miles an hour over the speed limit in the rain. It's one thing to do that when it's dry. It's another thing to do that in the rain. It's foolish. It's one thing to know, here's the theory, the logic, why traffic lights are red, yellow, and green. It's another thing to know, to see if you actually stop when it's yellow and how many red light camera tickets you get sent. J.I. Packer, in talking about this, says, if you're going to drive well, you must not fret over why the lady in front of you, check this out, is accelerating while her foot is on the brake. You guys seen that, right? You see that she going forward, sorry, it could be a guy, but he just says a lady. So if you put your foot on and the car's going forward, like something's wrong, the car should be slowing down, but some people don't know how to drive. It says, rather, you simply try and see and do the right thing in the actual situation that presents itself. The effect of divine wisdom is to enable you and me to do just that in the actual situations of life. See, you can know a lot and be a very unsafe driver. And if you're an unsafe driver, you're an unwise driver. And you can know not that much. You don't have to know how many horsepower your car has. You don't have to know why the traffic lights are red, yellow, and green. And you can be a very safe, wise driver. We know this. And this helps us get the difference between wisdom and knowledge. But you know if a person's knowledgeable by giving them a test or asking them a theoretical question. But you know if someone's wise by looking at their life. You can't know if someone's wise by asking them questions. They may appear wise. But unless it has infiltrated their life and that knowledge that they have, that good knowledge that they have is affecting the way they live their life, you don't know. You know if someone's wise by what they actually do. Let me show you this in verse 13. It says, who is wise and understanding among you? So if I ask you that today and I say,